Good morning, everyone. It's a new day today, and we're going to continue on transferring things over to YouTube. Today, we're going to be talking about step 2, which is came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. It's a good one. All right. Let me bring. Let me bring this up. My cats are on the move. All right, let's play this.
Hi there, and welcome to I'm Only Human, a podcast that attempts to explain how to coexist with other humans. This podcast is going to dive into topics like: is it possible to overcome human nature? Are rules and laws necessary for taming bad behaviors, or are they simply a control mechanism crafted by other disturbed minds? Why do we fight with each other? How does traditional religion impact us? Can social disease be healed through individual recovery? My name is Jen, and I'm an average human. Before I begin, I would like to state that I will be talking about controversial things such as, but not limited to, religion, God, the Bible, 12-step programs, and politics. I am not an expert, and I don't claim to be one. I will, however, be referencing Alcoholics Anonymous because it is the granddaddy of all other 12-step programs. I will also be quoting things from the Bible and mentioning God along with different religions. I'm not trying to promote a particular program, nor am I trying to convert anyone. I believe religion gives us a foundation, and 12-step recovery guides people down a path to self-actualization. Through recovery, healing is possible. I believe that changed minds and attitudes can change our world. Greetings, average humans. Today we move on to the second step: how to create a connection to a power greater than yourself. Pages 44 and 45 of the Big Book, 4th edition, state, quote, "If a mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism, many of us would have recovered long ago. But we found that such codes and philosophy did not save us, no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral, we could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem." End quote. This was taken from the Big Book of AA, but honestly, it relates to human behavior in general. Alcoholism is an addiction, just like drugs. I'll get into codependency in a future podcast, but that is also similar to an addiction. I think it was cruel to create humans without giving them any hint of how to navigate human emotions. These steps are our guide to changing behaviors and attitudes. It is a long, involved process, but well worth it. It is our job to spread this message to others that might want to change but don't know how to do it. Step 2 is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. This is where anyone can create their own concept of a power greater than themselves, which most people call God. I suppose I could call my higher power Bob if I wanted to, rather than use the name God. I can say that my higher power is gravity. I can say my higher power is electricity. Maybe my higher power is the sun, Mother Nature, a microwave. It doesn't matter what you believe your higher power to be. The whole point is to find a connection to something. Going through the steps is like an interrogation process, so shall we get to it? I realized from listening to my first step podcast that it seemed a bit scattered, and that's because I was answering questions as they were laid out. This might be more of the same, so please bear with me. The light is green, so here we go with question 1. What is my concept of a higher power at this time? And let me rephrase that. What is your concept of a higher power at this time? This is strictly my own opinion. I think of the universe as my higher power. I don't like to say higher power all the time, so I still refer to it as God. This way, I don't have to explain it to anyone else. Unfortunately, most people instantly shut their minds and become defensive at the name God. I completely understand this. I think that traditional religion has shown us as a world where God is a jerk. He promotes hate and violence against anyone that opposes him. We are made to feel horrible for making human errors. He also promotes zero tolerance for individual thinking. I guess it all depends on which religion, too. Each type has their own vision of religious God, and some promote horrible punishment for basically being alive to begin with. The expectations of a religious God are not reasonable, but forget all that for now and just listen, give it a chance. What do you got to lose? What would it take for me to allow my concept of a higher power to change? What would it take for you to allow your concept of a higher power to change? For me, my concept has already changed because I think of religious God as nothing more than a grifter sometimes. Yes, the Bible tells an amazing story. Yes, that story did happen. What changed my perspective was science fiction and a movie called The Fifth Element. At the beginning of the movie, an alien species comes to visit Earth and someone gets freaked out and kills the alien. Scientists were able to take the hand of the alien, put it into a machine, and have the computer create a whole human out of that DNA from the hand. This is how I believe Bible God really created humans. Maybe we are a result of genetics testing. They, meaning Bible scientists who call themselves God, started with early man but were unable to communicate effectively with them. Modifications kept being made until there was success. The desired human races or humans were created. Who's to say that is not the case? The Bible states that woman was created from the rib of the man. I used to think of God of the Bible as my higher power, but now my higher power is nature. The power of Mother Nature cannot be stopped. If you don't believe me, think about how often you need to mow your lawn or weed your garden before nature takes over. We have no control over the weather. We must adapt to it. Next question. Have I let past experiences affect my concept of a higher power? If so, how? Well, how have you let past experiences affected your concept of a higher power or of God? And if so, how? Well, for me, I know that my upbringing and Lutheran education have affected my concept of who religious God was. I believe at one point there was something that created humans prior to life on our planet. The only reason I say this is because I've been looking at human emotion, and the Bible did state that we were created in God's image. The miracles performed in the Bible could simply be advanced technology that at the time nobody knew how to explain. Therefore, being raised from the dead after 3 days may not have been a big deal to religious God because they had the technology to bring Jesus back. These advanced humans might have technology like Star Trek, where the medical bay is nothing more than machines that help you heal faster. There could be truth in science fiction after all. Our brains just thought it was a fairy tale up until now, but those things are starting to become a reality. For all we know, biblical humans were way more advanced than we think they were. We have no way of knowing the truth. The way the Bible is written is not like that of any award winning author. It's redundant and it talks in riddles. So, next question on deck. What do I hope to gain from accepting the concept of a power greater than myself? Well, how about you? What would you hope to gain from accepting a concept of a power greater than yourself? For me, from accepting there is something greater than me, I accept that I am not all powerful. I accept that I am not the one that makes the universe spin. I accept that I am incapable of doing everything I want to do because I don't have the power to achieve those things. The point is to create a connection to a power greater than me, which will help me overcome the things that I need to face. This power lends strength when I can't do it on my own. If I release my will to this power, it allows me to relax. The feeling I get from releasing things I can't control is serenity. This sounds easy, but do not be fooled. Do you sense spiritual guidance in your life? How? I'm not going to answer this one, so I'll let you think about it without my influence. So, again, the question was, do you sense spiritual guidance in your life and how? Next, I know I'm saying the word power a lot and I apologize. So sorry. How do I choose to describe the power I found because of recovery? Well, the power that I found in recovery is very different than my higher power. What I mean by that is that the fellowship among recovering people is so great that we can sense one another without knowing each other personally. We can connect on a spiritual level. It doesn't matter where I go, it doesn't matter what group I attend, the fellowship remains the same regardless of what type of recovery a person has discovered. Shifting again, let's talk about the phrase let go and let God. This gets tossed around quite a bit. What does it mean to me? Well, this means that I don't need to stress about the unknown. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I have no control. Letting go of people and situations means that I have faith that a power greater than me is taking care of me. I look back on a lot of things in my life and see those painful situations were a blessing, not a curse. Letting go of people I love means that I don't need to micromanage their life for them. They are safe. It may not seem like it when someone I love is going through a very difficult time and there is nothing I can do about it. Maybe your loved one is currently homeless, addicted, and making horrible life decisions. Maybe your loved one was taken in a tragic accident. Perhaps your loved one was diagnosed with cancer. We may think that it's unfair and unjust, but it was destined to be from the start. Nobody can escape death. When it is your time, you have no say. I think about this when I hear feed about freak accidents. It reminds me of the movie Final Destination. In case you don't know, in that movie, a group of people escaped death. Death was not too happy about this, so it came after each person until its list was complete. Well, that was a depressing thought. Sorry. Jumping into the next question, we are asked, what does faith mean to me? I just saw something on Facebook a few days ago, which was an inspirational quote. And it said, you relax on a plane even though you don't know the pilot. You relax on a ship even though you don't know the captain. You relax on a bus even though you don't know the driver. This is what faith is. I make plans for sometimes months in advance. This is faith. Faith that I'm going to be alive either 1 month, 6 months, or 1 year from now. I make plans for tomorrow, having faith that the sun will rise. I get in my car and drive. I have faith that I will not be in a car accident. I flip on the light switch at home. I have faith that the lights will go on. Okay, moving to a different topic now. With whom and in what circumstances am I comfortable discussing my spiritual experiences? Well, spiritual experiences are something that cannot be shared with just anybody. I am comfortable sharing my experiences with other people who have had their own experiences and they don't look at me with disdain. A person who is not ready to comprehend what spirituality is will immediately become defensive. There is no point in arguing. In the end, it's just one opinion versus another opinion. In the big book of AA, Abby Thatcher tried to convince Bill Wilson of God's greatness. Bill wasn't having any of that. He wanted nothing to do with God. Abby tried to argue with Bill about it. Eventually, they got to a point in the conversation where Abby said, "Then create your own image of God." And that is what opened the door for Bill. What might I gain from believing I could be supported and loved by a power greater than myself? Well, what might you hope to gain from believing that you could be supported and loved by a power greater than yourself? For me, the gain that I received is self confidence. I'm still a work in progress. I may sound all polished during these podcasts. Well, not really, but it's because I type out everything that I'm going to say and I can edit the audio. When I see that people are listening to this podcast, it helps me realize that I do matter, at least somehow. In believing that I could be loved and supported by a power greater than myself, I realize that I am worthy of being loved in general. There's still work to be done there. I know I'm loved, but a lot of times I still don't feel it. That's just me. Moving on, what does came to believe mean to me? Well, for me, it's like waking up from a sleep. As your body gets closer to waking up, you become more aware and more conscious of what's going on around you. Once I am fully awake, I see things differently than in the half sleepy state. Came to believe is much of the same concept. It is something that has to be experienced for it to be effective. Everyone has to find their own awareness. Here is a big one. Are you ready? What does sanity mean? Well, we've made it this far without visiting any rabbit holes, but here we go. The definition of sanity is reasonable and sensible behavior or thinking. The synonyms are sense, common sense, wisdom, prudence, judiciousness, practicality, reasonableness, rationality, soundness, sensibleness, and good sense. The next definition of sanity is the ability to think and behave in a way considered to be normal and rational. Synonyms associated with this definition are mental health, balance, stability, reason, rationality, saneness, lucidity, lucidness, sense, senses, wits, normality, right mindedness, soundness of mind, mental faculties, and balance of mind. The antonyms for both are insanity, so it's only fair that I define what insanity is. Insanity is defined as extreme foolishness or irrationality. Most would agree that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. The synonyms are folly, foolish, fool, heartedness, idiocy, stupidity, imbecility, lunacy, madness, silliness, senselessness, brainlessness, thoughtlessness, irrationality, illogicality, absurdity, ludicrousness, ridiculousness. The second definition of if the second definition of insanity is the inability to think and behave in ways considered to be normal and rational, especially on account of serious mental illness. Associations with that definition are madness, dementia, dementedness, lunacy, instability, delirium, hysteria, mania, psychosis, mental illness, mental disorder, mental derangement, insaneness, unsoundness of mind, loss of reason, and crazedness. Sorry, that was a lot. So the question was, what does sanity mean to me? And I think the definition describes it perfectly. Like, if I keep hitting my head on the door expecting it to open for me, I'm not doing myself any favors. Instead, why not open the door and walk through? Why try to break it with my face over and over? Knowing the definition of both sanity and insanity, we ask, how has the human condition affected my sanity and my life? Well, for me, I've done some bad things in my insane thinking, and I'm going to jump a little bit here and there. So sorry about that. So I had a boyfriend who's now deceased. I used to scream at him due to his alcoholism. We used to get into shouting matches. I'm sure we annoyed plenty of neighbors. That was insane enough. I left him passed out in the car once, half hanging out of the car. This was after I tried to wake him up by spraying him with cold water, and that didn't work. I couldn't carry him because he was a big guy, so I left him passed out half in and half out of the vehicle. Another bit of insane behavior was me. I used to scream and yell at my kid just for being a kid. I was a bad mom, and I should have defended her more against his anger. We were both petrified of his anger, that we were both helpless. It seemed that as long as he was in a good mood, we could all relax. If I couldn't keep him in that good mood, I failed somehow. Insanity also looks like screaming and yelling at other cars and traffic, which I still do. I'm not going to lie. Road rage is a form of insanity. Jumping again, I had another ex who liked to get out of the car and scream at the driver in the car next to us. There were some pretty tense situations. I get weirded out by violence like that. And once I got a shiner in a bar fight due to someone else's insanity. And then my insane behavior was trying to break up the fight. I put myself in a very dangerous position between two drunk grown men. Insanity might also look like quitting your job in the heat of the moment. People do crazy things all the time, but now it's broadcast on Facebook and YouTube and TV, and others get a kick out of it. Insane behavior has become the norm. It's just like living in a Jerry Springer show. Time to pause. Okay, shift and the next question. Have I allowed a dysfunctional situation to become my higher power? And if so, how? Well, have you? What this means is allowing things to keep you mad, allowing workplace tensions to spill over into personal lives, allowing politics and the news to fuel your rage. When we feed into these negative things, they become our higher power and they control our thoughts, feelings, and actions. I don't like to think about work when I'm not at work. I don't like to associate with my coworkers when I'm not at work. I want some separation in my life so that I can stay calm. I don't watch the news. Well, I should say I rarely watch the news because every time I do, I get irritated. I get angry. I remember when 9/11 happened and everyone was glued to their TV. That event took over the minds of most Americans and it became their higher power. The thought of social injustice, political correctness, and injustice in general has become a dominating force for just about everybody. We now base our lives on those things that we have no control over, and the world has changed because of it and not for anything better. This is where individual recovery can turn the tables. This is how we make lasting changes in our world. We must stop giving power to other people. Change starts with you, with me, not with them. Our individual recovery has a big impact on those around us, and that is how change starts. Moving along, how has my thinking become distorted trying to handle dysfunctional situations? Well, if I'm wrapped up in politics and the news and the world drama, my thinking will become distorted. There's proof of that when riots happen. Anarchy follows because a bunch of people that have distorted thinking came together and fueled one another. Just about everyone has an opinion on politics, what the government should and should not be doing, and neither group agrees with one another. George Floyd riots are a perfect example of this. It was a sad thing, I agree. Right or wrong, no human should be treated that way. It was a big ordeal and sparked the Black Lives Matter movement. But you know what? It is usually people killing their own kind. Did you think about that? Do black lives only matter when it's a white person that kills a black person? How much black on black crime is there? Yeah, that's right. I said it. How about nobody has the right to do harm to another person in general? Let's take color out of the argument. Quit being a pawn in their political war and wake up. So, how have I turned to a power greater than myself in times of great need? Well, I'm turning to it right now because I'm getting riled up over things I have no control over. In times of anger, pain, or loneliness, I turn to the serenity prayer. God, Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Although I think of God as a character in a book, I mentioned earlier that my higher power is the universe, but I choose to call it God. It's just easier to say, God, grant me the serenity, rather than say, universe, grant me the serenity. I can ask for Joe to grant me serenity, or Dave or Jill, but that feels wrong. So I say God. I also turn to a lot of podcasts as a power greater than myself to help restore me to sanity. The types of podcasts I listen to are not much different than this podcast I've created. I hear what I need to hear and it brings me back down to earth. It gives me a different perspective versus what my angry, dysfunctional mind has conjured up to be true. I read a lot of Facebook posts from inspirational quotes and things that are meant to get a person to think on a deeper level. Those also help restore me to sanity. It doesn't happen right away. Like a few nights ago, I repeated the serenity prayer like 5 or 6 times before I felt any relief. The fellowship of a recovery program is also a power greater than me. It allows me to connect with peers on a personal level, and I can use their strength until I find my own. I've heard of people lending their higher power to a newcomer until that person can find their own higher power. It is the whole reason 12-step recovery is so effective. And I don't understand the stigma associated with such programs. And that is why I'm trying to talk about it in simple terms and remove the stigma of what 12-step recovery programs actually look like. I honestly think that it saves lives. And in case you didn't know, they are all free. There are no experts and there is no judgment. Everyone that has walked through those doors came in at their worst, and nobody criticized them for still shaking or detoxing. Nobody scolded them when they relapsed. Anyone in a program understands as few others can because they lived it too. Again, my observations. I'm not trying to promote anything other than saving a life. The first few times are the hardest, but through time, healing can happen if you're willing to let it. Working this step means answering the questions and taking a look in yourself, just like the first step and just like the following steps. Have you done the same things over and over again and expected different results? Are you angry about those things? Maybe your life is unmanageable and you are insane and you don't know it. I can only hit my head against the wall so many times to solve my problem before I realize I just need to open the door and walk through rather than beat my head against a barrier. This is what insanity looks like. We're all on a hamster wheel of life. The days just blend together and we start to wonder what's the point of it all. I've broken up the monotony of everyday life and working just by doing this podcast. It helps me reflect on myself, and this may be selfish, but it makes me feel better to know that I am potentially helping another person. The whole reason for community service is to help someone else, but in the process of helping other people, you gain an incredible insight or experience. Like recently, I've been helping my kids with an Eagle Scout project, and we've been cleaning gravestones of the forgotten. I may have mentioned this, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, it was a great experience because I noticed when people do community work together, eventually they start to talk and communicate, and you might potentially make a new friend. There's also a sense of accomplishment once the task is done, and it's something that everyone can be proud of. It's something the community can be proud of. So maybe instead of fighting one another for personal gain, let's see how we can help one another for personal gain. There is a difference between helping another and exploiting someone for your own gain and disguising it as help. If you're attempting to exploit, you're still not going to be happy. Well, join me again and watch for step 3. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly of my own making, or by my guests. Take what you like and leave the rest. You may come to realize that you may not like me or what I want to share. Let's talk to each other, reason things out, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the fellowship of ethical human behavior and the serenity from positive human interaction help you grow and chill out, one experience at a time. I would like to thank my higher power for guiding me through this podcast. I hope to spread the message of love, hope, and understanding by touching one life at a time. If you like this podcast, please like and share it. Comments also help other struggling people find it. I am now listener supported, and if you would like to contribute, please feel free. There is no obligation. If you would like to share feedback, you can email me at averagehumanbeing1875@gmail.com. There is also a link you can click if you'd like to send a voice message and add to the content of the show. Fellow
Okay. Oh, let's stop sharing that. Okay. That was a pretty good episode. I totally forgot about it, and I brought up some really good points. So join me again for, let's see, what episode is going to be next. Podcast news followed by Bible Journey, Genesis Part 4. Okay, join me again next time. Bye-bye.